Hey, welcome back. I hope everyone's doing well. Before I go on to playing Res Evil Village, I thought I'd just cover just a couple things that have happened in the past couple of days. Won't be big segments. So the first thing, if you're in the UK, you may be familiar with the fact that last September, the jury consultation result was announced and the government effectively decided to scrap any sort of reform other than making the fee to apply for a certificate cheaper, which happened last week, and moving the process online, which was a massive disappointment. But what they did also announce at the same time was that they were going to be opening 3 new gender clinics to try and help with trans healthcare, which sounded fantastic on the surface of it. But unfortunately, what was actually found to be the case was that they were referring to 3 pre-existing trials that had been opened up earlier in the year by the NHS and weren't actually for gender identity clinics. So that was frustrating again, to say the least, because it sounded great on the surface of it, but actually it wasn't the true story. However, we take what we can get, and some news today is that NHS England are launching a new pilot scheme for trans healthcare this summer. So NHS England is opening a 4th pilot scheme for trans healthcare in England in the next few months, MPs have been told. The 4th pilot scheme will be opening this summer in the east of England. John Stewart, the National Director of Specialised Commissioning at NHS England, told MPs today. Stewart was giving evidence to the Women and Equality Select Committee on Transgender Healthcare as part of its inquiry into the reform of the Gender Recognition Act, the GRA. So this is what I was talking about in my previous video, where and what I've just mentioned, with the result of the GRA consultation effectively scrapped. And so the Women and Equality Select Committee have decided to assess the government's decision and action on that consultation and whether it was sufficient and is there anything else that can be done. And as part of that, they've been conducting a inquiry basically into all areas. So they've been asking for evidence from the general public and experts in the field, and they think that the submission for evidence from the public ended, I believe, at the end of November or the start of December. But since then, they've been doing in person, as far as possible, interviews and questioning of, as I said, professionals in the area or organisations that have some interest. So these will likely, given that it was evidence today, this would probably be, you could probably find this on the UK government committee website. So there are 3 existing pilot schemes in London, Manchester and Merseyside, which started running late last year. So that's what we're talking about. The pilot scheme takes trans and non-binary people who are on a waiting list for a NHS gender clinic rather than accepting referrals directly from a GP. So the purpose of this, I think, was to tackle the long waiting lists, because it's something like 12,000, I believe, people at last count on the waiting list. So they were trying to trial, to see if they could help relieve some of that load from the main gender identity clinics around the UK. The 4th pilot scheme will cover patients registered with a GP in Cambridge, Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex, Stewart said. He added that the pilot scheme will be led by the Nottingham Gender Dysphoria Clinic with the Cambridge and Peterborough Foundation Trusts, and will work on a specialist hub and spoke basis with GPs and nurses in local settings. Questioned by Kate Osborne, Stewart said he was confident that the pilot scheme would be opening this summer in the next couple of months. Stewart told the committee he would write to them with more detail. NHS England has confirmed to Pink News that the new pilot scheme will also cover Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire and Milton Keynes, and is hoping to launch this summer. Okay, so theoretically, I could end up then getting contacted by this, seeing as I am currently on the waiting list. The 3 existing pilot schemes will take around 500 patients each. As of 2020, more than 13,500 trans and non-binary were on a waiting list for an NHS gender clinic. So I slightly underestimated it. So even at 500 each, if you even include the new one, that's 2,000. So you're still talking 11,500 people on the waiting list, which is crazy. Yeah, no wonder the wait times are now, 4 years plus for someone new getting on. The NHS Constitution mandates that the waiting time for a first appointment at a gender clinic after being referred by a GP should be no more than 18 weeks. But in many parts of the country, this wait is now 5 years. Okay, I haven't heard that 5 years figure before. This just links to another one of their articles. So this is a specific clinic. So I don't think that's the average. I just think it's as far as it can. Yeah. So that's as far as it can go, to be fair. I think the average is, maybe 3 to 4 years. I'd have to... We got... so when was that? That was a couple of years ago. It's a year ago. Got average in here. That's saying 18 months, but I have since seen longer times than that. Oh, and also, I don't use Bing. It's because I'm doing it in guest mode. Because when I was looking around, that's Pink News again. Where do they get their source? That's the same one. Do they actually go on and say where? Oh, that is the same one. Or it's at least the same picture. Got average of 39 months. Oh, here you go. I mean, it's not exactly, a proper research document, or it's even not going to load. So these were as of 2018. So we had 48 months, say 4 years, up to 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, a year, 2.5, or just over a year. Waiting time is 24 months. Oh wow, so that's a 4-year wait. And that was 3 years ago. So I'm going to say maybe between 2 and 3 years is perhaps the average. But I mean, I'm sure I've seen an article. I have to try and find that. But that's saying, yeah, just for the first appointment. But that was a year ago. But then often, you have to wait some... I haven't seen 2 years before, but I have heard a lot and read that it can be a year from your first appointment to the appointment where you get hormones. So, if you add a year to that, you're talking 2.5 years. So either way, it's a long time and way past their 18 weeks commitment. I think that 5 years is a slight exaggeration, at least as an average, and many parts, but it definitely is getting near 3 years. I mean, anecdotal, but just myself for the Northampton Gender Identity Clinic, That's when I applied in 2019, to the start of 2019. That was a 40-month wait, so that's just under 3.5 years. So I'd be very surprised, given other ones are very similar when I was looking around, if the average isn't higher than the 18 months. Tory Equalities Minister Liz Truss announced pilot schemes when she scrapped GRA reform in September 2020. However, she branded them as new gender clinics, when in reality she's referring to 3 pilot schemes. Yeah, so there you go. So that was just trying to make it sound better. And also, I'm not sure about this new one, but the previous 3 pilot schemes, I believe, don't actually offer all the same services that a gender identity clinic does. I know I've seen somewhere. Trans healthcare clinic trials. Oh, I really need to switch this. Whoops. No, that's not clinical trials. I know I have seen these. Where are they? Here you go. This goes into... this is what we want. So, Gender Dysphoria Clinical Programme. In 2018, we established a board for gender dysphoria services. Or do you go into what you go into? Adult services. So I don't know if this is specifically for those, though. So I think this is referring to the group rather than necessarily the individual places, like in Manchester and London. Here we go. Framework of new gender dysphoria services in primary care and sexual health services as pilots for evaluation in London, Greater Manchester and Cheshire and Merseyside. So, okay, so it still sounds like they are sort of getting up and running with what exactly they are doing, and they're part of other services. So it's not a full-blown clinic, but it is something. It's a start, and I would hope... I don't know if we can actually find what they offer anywhere. Let's search this. Say somewhere I saw it mention about the... Here we go. These services will be delivered by healthcare professionals with specialist skills and based in local NHS areas such as sexual health services. Full details will be available once each service is opened. Okay, so it might be at least an initial appointment with a specialist to assess you and for you to learn a bit about the process if you don't know already. But beyond that, I'm a bit unclear what it actually offers. I'd hope it then at least offers what's the word? Referral for counselling services if you need it. Yeah, it would be interesting to see the outcome of these, to see how successful they are. So definitely be interested. So this is good news. But I still think, you know, it's a relatively, unfortunately, small step. Every step is important, but we still have, you know, 11,500 people on the waiting list. Now, to be fair, hopefully, I don't know how long these pilot schemes are running for. Here we go. So the existing service specification and clinical commissioning policy for gender identity development service has now reached a planned review date. Both documents are being considered as part of a full independent review of the service, which will take place during 2020-21. Okay, so that's been talked about. I can't remember the person's name who's in charge, but there's someone who's been appointed to investigate and assess all trans healthcare for children, is what I was aware. So this doesn't quite fall into then for adults, but maybe this could help at least that. But what about I'm not sure when this gets reviewed. It doesn't say how long these run for, which is a shame. But that's just something to keep an eye on. And yeah, even if it only helps 500 people, that's still 500 people hopefully better off, or at least even if they're not able to proceed to prescription or prescribing if they need it, they're then able to get counselling and work out if it is right for them or where they fit, and just get the help they need. It's a hell of a lot better than the nothingness that most people have on this list, unless you're able to afford private healthcare. Because I've had nothing from my gender identity clinic, as I've said in previous videos, since February 2019 when I was originally put on the waiting list. Yeah, and that's tough. That's tough when you're already in a vulnerable position. To be told, oh, here's a 40-month wait, here's some websites you can look at, see you then. It's not brilliant, let's just say that. Say even a small dent is welcome. Like, this is absolutely welcome, don't get me wrong. I just hope something actually comes out of these trials, and either they work and that we expand this so it's more available around the country. I guess the question then is the expertise required to be able to provide these services. Though I would hope there is plenty of that out there. I got distracted by Donald Glover. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I just hope something actually happens rather than, the consultation and then nothing happened afterwards. I hope these don't just shut down and that's it. Or they just continue without any sort of review. There has to be a review at some point in a couple of years to work out if this is working. The problem is, in a couple of years' time, this is only going to have climbed even more. So it feels like, and part of the reason I wanted to talk about this, it feels like it's good news, but it's not enough. It's a drop in the ocean, and more could be done. Now, I'd hope the fact that actually they're opening a fourth is actually indication that the other three are being successful. But I'm not aware of any data on that, which is a shame. But to be fair, if they've only been open, a year or under, that's not surprising. So we'll just have to wait and see.